Because these sessions are closer back to back than most other sessions in the conference, I'm going to wait an extra minute or two to allow people to get here from the session they were watching during the previous time block.
Okay.
And I do see that the participant numbers have been jumping up quite a bit.
Excellent.
For those of you just joining us, we're waiting just another minute or two because of the closeness of the previous session ending time. All right, I think we will go ahead. Hello, Gale Conference attendees. My name is Chris Stacy Bates. I'll be the moderator for this session. Before we begin, a few reminders. We do have a code of conduct that we will adhere to for all sessions in the Gale Conference, and I am posting this link in chat now. If you experience any issues related to conduct of other attendees, please contact us via email, and that email is also listed in the chat. Attendees, please make sure your microphone is muted. You can ask to unmute during the question and answer period, or you can type your questions into the Q&A window. This session is being recorded. If you want captions, you can enable those by clicking on the Show Captions button at the bottom of the screen. Now, our presenter for this session is Jessica Hawks. Jessica is the Government Information Librarian at Nicholls State University. Prior to arriving there, she gained experience in both academic and public libraries, as she held positions at Louisiana Tech University, Louisiana State University Shreveport, and Lincoln Parish Library. Her professional interests include gamified pedagogy, outreach, accessibility, DEI, information literacy, and student success. Jessica enjoys exploring new, innovative methods of outreach and instruction to engage with both new and existing students. Please join me in welcoming Jessica.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my session, Game on Leveling Up Library Engagement with Generative AI. As mentioned, I'm Jessica Hawks, and I'm the Government Information Librarian at Nicholls State University in Louisiana. So this session is going to highlight the many ways that generative AI can be used as a tool to transform library services, including the gamification of information literacy instruction, outreach, and marketing. We'll also touch on a few tips that we can use to generate better results when using generative AI. And of course, we will talk for a minute about some of the limitations and considerations of AI for library engagement. So let's just dive right in. Okay, there we go. So what is generative AI and what does it mean for libraries? Generative AI is simply a type of artificial intelligence that can learn from and mimic large amounts of data. And the end result is to create content such as text, images, music, videos, code, and much, much more. And all of these creations are based on inputs and prompts from people like you and me. So what does that mean for libraries? It means that AI can be a tool to completely transform the way that we are approaching library services. For example, generative AI gives us the potential to curate digital content. This curation of digital content can range from creating web page content to social media, and even to being able to improve the searchability within our digital collections. It can also be used to help us to create some more interactive and engaging outreach initiatives. So this includes helping us to create an outreach plan, creating some gamified elements such as prompts or puzzles for an escape room, and even helping us to effectively assess our outreach by creating some feedback surveys. And of course, it has the capacity to enhance, not replace, but enhance information literacy instruction. And it does this by streamlining our lesson planning, by helping us to generate some gamified elements, and even providing some scenario-based prompts and examples that students can use to apply the knowledge that, that they have about information literacy. And of course, AI can also help to create marketing materials. So this includes anything from interactive activities for, this includes anything from interactive activities for social media, some social media posts, and even planning documents like a marketing plan or a social media calendar. And of course, these are only a few of the ways that AI can be integrated into the library process to improve the experience both for students and staff. For me, there are three major areas of use with AI. So these are the areas that I regularly use generative text to be able to enhance library services. So we have information literacy instruction, outreach, and marketing. So we'll dive into each of these in depth in just a moment, but let me give you an overview of how AI can be integrated into these three major areas. First, we have information literacy instruction. Here I can use generative AI to help to help to support learning objectives. And I can also use it to help to reduce planning time whenever it comes to information literacy instruction. This is particularly important for those of us with limited staff or those of us who are wearing many hats. And we can also use AI to help to create opportunities for engagement, whether it's through AI-assisted activities or creating some of those scenario-based prompts for students to be able to apply their knowledge to. Next up, we have outreach. In outreach, AI is an incredible tool for streamlining the planning process. And this takes shape in a number of different ways, from brainstorming to creating planning documents like a proposal form or an event checklist, and even creating feedback surveys to be able to analyze our feedback data. So AI is incredible for making these type of materials. So for example, if I'm working an information table at a campus-wide event, I might just have AI generate a list of library specific trivia so that I can have an interactive game at that table to make the event just a little bit more engaging and interactive for the students. And finally, marketing. So AI is something I use regularly in marketing. Here we can use it as a tool to create social media posts or even variations for each different social media platform, just to make sure that we're reaching our patrons in the most effective way possible. But we can also use AI in marketing to create some of those planning documents, like that social media post calendar or marketing plan. So let's dive straight into instruction. So for instruction, I like to begin with brainstorming with AI using tools such as ChatGPT or Gemini. These both have free versions of them that just help me to be able to bounce ideas off of or to get inspiration from some of the generated responses. For example, if I'm doing a lesson on evaluating resources, I might use generative AI to see if anything sparks an idea. Um, so I might use the prompt of evaluating resource interactive lesson plan. And then this is going to generate a broad lesson plan for me to look over. And I can just kind of peruse it to see if anything strikes me or inspires me. And we know that AI is an incredible tool for inspiration and brainstorming, but we also know that instruction is nuanced. So we can't just take the generated lesson plan and call it a day. We have to make sure that we are tweaking it, that we are tailoring it to our needs and to our students. So we want to make sure that that the lesson is going to meet the learning objectives that we put forward, that we're highlighting the most relevant resources available to the students. And that at the end of the day, the students are walking away with a better understanding of the topic. Using AI, you can also generate interactive activities for lesson planning. For example, I am a huge fan of gamification. I try and embed gamification into almost everything that I do. But I know that for others, it can be a challenge. It can be difficult to come up with those interactive activities that students are going to be engaged with. But generative AI can make that process much easier and much more comfortable. For example, if I'm looking for a fun interactive activity to kick off my lesson with, and I'm just coming up with nothing, I can't think of a single thing that I think students are going to be engaged with. This is whenever I can turn to AI to help me brainstorm. So I could do a quick prompt directing the AI to write a list of gamified icebreakers about evaluating resources. And it's going to generate a fairly sized list for me. And I can just go through the generated list and see if anything works for me. If there's anything on there that I'm inspired by that I can explore further. And of course, my favorite use of AI in the planning process is in the lesson plan review. So using generative AI, I can give the prompt of critique the following lesson plan and copy, and then I can copy and paste one of my existing lesson plans into the prompt box. The AI is then going to evaluate and offer suggestions to me to make my lesson plan just a little bit more engaging and interactive. So it just gives me another way to get feedback on my lessons to improve them for the future. Another benefit of this lesson plan review is if you are new to gamification or you want to try it and you're not sure where to begin. Another option is to upload an existing lesson plan and then prompt the AI to add gamified components to this lesson plan. And it will offer suggestions for embedding those gamified elements. And you can add those gamified elements to your lesson plan to make it just a little bit more engaging for your students. Okay, and then we have all of our gamified elements for instruction. So I use AI to create gamified elements for my lessons pretty often. It's great in the brainstorming stage to be able to generate lots of ideas and take inspiration from those. But sometimes I also have a specific idea in mind. So I can use generative AI to give me a list of prompts for an activity. For example, if I want to do a minute to win it research game, I can use the prompt of write a list of minute to win it tasks for a research game. And this will generate the content for the game. And so once I've generated the list, I can tailor it to the needs of my students. And then my prep for the activity is completely done. So it's a huge time saver. Another great use of AI in instruction is through custom content for scenario-based activities. For my classes, I'm often asked to cover plagiarism and academic integrity as a part of the session. So to accomplish this, I usually turn to a plagiarism sleuth activity where students are provided some very short scenarios about plagiarism and academic integrity. And then they have to decide which scenarios constitute plagiarism or a violation of academic integrity. So whenever I'm creating this activity, I use generative AI to produce the scenarios that the students are judging. I can just enter in the prompt of write a list of scenarios for a plagiarism sleuth game. And then I can take the list and tailor it to make sure that it's reinforcing my learning objectives. So I'm going to show you briefly a few examples of some of these prompts for instruction. So we talked about just using ChatGPT to brainstorm. So I'm going to enter in the prompt of create an evaluating resources lesson plan. Just a few simple words. And we can see that it's already generating results. And it looks a lot like lesson plans that we would use. If we scroll back up, we can see that it has objectives. It tells us what materials we need, and gives us an outline for a lesson plan that we can take some inspiration from. But we might want to just create some gamified activities from it. So we might also try the prompt of write a list of gamified icebreakers about evaluating resources. And as we can see, it's generating quite a few results for us. So we have lots of options, and we can kind of just look over these, see what strikes us. And if we want to flesh it out further, we could copy and paste one of the results. I'm going to try this speed craft test. And we're going to tell ChatGPT to write details about the following activity. And then we're just going to copy and paste the description it gave us in the first one. And now it's giving us details that include like the objectives, the gameplay, the reward, all the stuff that we need to be able to build this particular activity. So that's a great way to kind of look over a variety of resources and be able to flesh out one that works for us. Okay, so let's talk about outreach in AI. So I love working with generative AI for outreach. We all know that outreach is time and labor intensive. So I like to use generative AI to help me to lighten the load. So to begin with, I like to organize outreach by using generative AI to streamline the planning process. So for this, I generate a number of planning documents, such as event proposal forms, event checklists, feedback surveys, sign-in sheets, things like that. For example, if I want to create a proposal form for staff to fill out to propose an outreach event, I can simply enter a prompt of create a library event proposal form. And as expected, we're going to see a number of elements that are going to be standard to a proposal form. So instead of taking the time to flesh all of those out, I can have AI do that for me. And then I can focus on tailoring the results to fit the specific needs of my library, instead of creating a relatively standard form completely from scratch. I also like to use generative AI to get an idea of emerging trends in library outreach. By entering a prompt of library outreach trends 2024, I can see a list of emerging trends and technologies related to library outreach. So this not only helps me in the planning process, but it also helps me to align my research objectives and my goals to practices that are happening across the board in libraries across the country. And of course, the last piece of planning is the assessment process. So I enjoy using generative AI to create feedback surveys for outreach events and initiatives. So this process helps me to streamline the assessment piece of the puzzle. While I still tailor the questions to my specific needs, by automating this process via AI, I'm able to free up some of my time to focus on other areas of outreach that need my immediate attention. And then we have our supporting resources. So AI is great in the creation of some supporting resources. And this is where the gamification element comes into play for outreach. Using generative AI, I can create a number of resources. I can create a list of trivia questions for an information table. I can create ready-made character sheets for gaming events. And I can also create gamified information literacy activities for large-scale events like a library open house. For example, if I know that I want to include an interactive information literacy activity about evaluating resources into the library open house, I can use generative AI to help to guide me to an activity that will work for me. I just enter a prompt of a list of evaluating resources games less than 5 minutes. And then I can take the results, refine them further with AI. If there's a specific game that's kind of speaking to me, I can prompt the AI to give me more details about that game or to create an instructions for that game. And then I can use that as the bones of my activity. Once again, the use of AI for these scenarios are a huge time saver because I can take the responses, edit them to my specific needs, and ultimately greatly reduce the amount of time and energy spent prepping for outreach. So let's test out a few of these for outreach. Okay, so this time I'm using Gemini, and I'm gonna do much similar like I did with ChatGPT and just enter in a prompt. Create a library event proposal form. And it's already generating it. And if we look at the proposal form, we can see it has a lot of the elements that we would want. We need name and contact information. We need event details like the title, the description, the target audience. We need event budget. And so it has a lot of the elements that we want. So we can take this and edit it and add in some elements that it's missing that we know that we're going to need. For example, with this, I would need to add a reservation space category to it. So I can use this as the bones and then tweak it to my needs. Okay, we also talked about creating feedback surveys using AI. So I'm going to enter in another prompt to create a feedback survey for a library outreach event. And it's immediately creating a survey for me. So it has a lot of the information that I'm going to want. And asks how they heard about the event satisfaction, what did they like, what could be improved, and gives us a lot of good information to start with. So I like to begin my feedback surveys with generative text and then edit it to fit the needs of our library. And then let's take a look at the gamification piece of outreach. So we might want to do a prompt to create a list of evaluating resources, games. And I'm putting the qualifier of less than 5 minutes. Because for large scale events like that, you want quick stations. And so I don't want them to give me games that are going to be an hour long. The more specific you are, the better whenever it comes to generative AI. And we can see that it's given us a list of different games that we can use. And we can take any of these that we like and create some interactive activities from them. For example, we might grab this "Would you trust this source" quiz and tell Gemini to write questions for the following quiz. And then it's going to generate a list of questions that we can take and sort through and edit to our needs. We do want to make sure to double check the answers on these, because we know that not everything on the internet is true, and that's where the generative AI is pulling their information from. But this gives us a start for it and saves us a lot of time whenever it comes to the creation process. Okay, and then we have marketing. So with marketing, I find AI to be an incredible tool. So using AI for marketing includes everything from creating social media posts to generating event blurbs, and even creating like scripts for video content. And once again, generative AI plays a huge role in my planning process. It simply helps me to streamline my processes by creating some planning documents. For example, one use of generative AI that I love is the creation of a social media calendar. This is particularly useful for those of us who may not be as familiar or as active on social media as others. So I can simply enter in a prompt of create a social media calendar for an academic library for the month of September. And AI will generate a weekly calendar of social media posts on the major social media platforms. And then I can simply sort through the post, edit them, tailor them, and then I have a social media calendar to get me started with. But another great use of AI in the marketing planning process is a trend summary. AI can quickly and easily provide me with a list of emerging marketing and social media trends. It can do it way faster than I can, and it lets me and my library stay on top of the newest and most relevant content. So what would take me hours of searching and analyzing online, I can use AI to streamline that process in just minutes. And then we have our content creation. So this is where we can imbue some of those gamified elements into our marketing. AI is incredible at creating content for social media. You can use almost any generative AI model to create specific social media posts, but you can even direct it to create variations of posts. That way we're using effective techniques for each specific social media platform. For example, on Facebook, the emphasis is often on text, where Instagram, the emphasis is on images. And so by using AI to create these variations, we can ensure that we're going to have engaging content that's very similar, no matter what platform our users are using to access it. Okay, and we can also use AI to generate a number of things like newsletter items, event blurbs, and even video scripts. For these elements, we might use generative AI to create a digital scavenger hunt as a marketing tool, content for interactive polls, generate posts for a contest based on social media interaction. We want to bring those classic gaming elements to marketing. And AI streams this process for us. If we wanted to create a digital scavenger hunt as a marketing strategy, we can turn to generative AI to create a list of tasks or objectives for the scavenger hunt, and also create appropriate posts for each major social media platform. And once we generate the results, we can just go through the items and specialize them to our marketing objectives and goals. So let's take a look at what this looks like for us as well. So we're back on Gemini, and we're going to have it create a social media calendar for us. Create a social media calendar for Nicholls State University Library for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can see that was far more specific this time. That is because I want it to include some of the Nicholls State University branding and its language for the social media posts. So we'll see that it may refer to students as colonels. And so it gives that nice familiar touch for the students and streamlines my editing process a little bit. And you can see that it creates variations of lots of different posts for June of 2024. So this is a great way to get started with our social media calendar. We can also explore AI to create some of those digital marketing tools like a scavenger hunt. So we can have it write a list of scavenger hunt prompts. Scavenger hunt prompts for Ellender Memorial Library. And search. And it is generating a list of prompts for us. It breaks it down into multiple categories. We can take a look and see which ones would work for us. Like the find a book with a spine and different color than the cover. That might be one, but we may not be able to use the find a statue or a bust of a famous author. So we want to go through and see which ones work the best for our needs. Okay, so a few tips for using AI. So generative AI can be incredibly powerful, but getting the most effective responses requires some strategic approaches. So here are some key tips to help you get better results from generative AI. And we've talked a little bit about some of these. First, we want to provide clear and specific prompts. The clearer and more specific your prompts are, the better the AI will understand what you are asking for. You want to avoid vague or overly broad prompts. For example, instead of asking, write a social media post for an outreach event, we might ask, write some social media posts for a banned book open mic night at Nicholls State University's Ellender Memorial Library with variations for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's a mouthful, but it's going to get us more effective search results. So if you outline exactly what you're looking for, the AI is going to better understand what you're looking for, and you'll see more effective responses as a result. 2, don't hesitate to try different ways of phrasing your prompts. Just like we tell patrons all the time, we sometimes have to change up our keywords. The same is true for AI. So sometimes those slight changes in wording can significantly impact the quality of the responses. So you want to try to experiment with different variations so that you can find the most effective approach for providing prompts to the AI. 3, be sure to provide context to help the AI understand the background of your request. Including relevant information or setting the scene can help to guide the AI to produce more accurate and more relevant responses. For example, instead of asking, write a lesson plan, we would want to give more context. So we might say, write an information literacy lesson plan about evaluating resources for a freshman composition course. And this is going to give us much more specific results and get closer to what we're looking for. And then 4, give examples. So providing examples of the type of response you're looking for can be very helpful. Examples act as a guide for the AI, showing it the structure and the type of content that you expect. So when possible, give examples, and you'll get more relevant and closely related results as a product of it. Okay, which brings us to limitations and considerations. So AI is an incredible tool, but we are responsible for how we use it. So it's important to note that AI in these areas does have some limitations that we need to consider. First up, ethical concerns. Generative AI has the concern of privacy issues. We know that generative AI is collecting data and using data that's been collected. These systems rely heavily on vast amounts of data, and the process of collecting the data often involves gathering personal information from users, which raises some significant privacy concerns. We need to think about how is this data being collected, how's it being stored, and how is it being used. These elements are crucial in maintaining user trust and privacy. And then we have concerns related to ownership and control. So who owns AI generated work? This question addresses legal and ethical aspects of ownership. So when an AI system generates work, whether it's art, music, literature, it's unclear who holds the rights to these creations. Is it the developer, the user who input the data, or perhaps the AI itself? Which also raises the question of whether the AI generated work is sufficiently transformative. So we have the issue of AI producing works that are not sufficiently transformative. AI often generates content based on existing work, and this can lead to derivative pieces, which can kind of undermine the value of human created works. And then we have accuracy and reliability. So we've determined that there are bias in AI, specifically in regard to prejudice, gender, and stereotype bias. AI systems often inherit biases from the data they are trained on. And this just results in perpetuating societal prejudice and inequalities. We want to keep that in mind as we are using AI for library services. We are going to inevitably see bias in some of the results we get. This is why it's so important to carefully review and evaluate any of the responses that we get. And anything that we use, we need to make sure that it aligns with the strategic goals of our libraries. And then we have the accuracy of resources referenced. So the reliability of AI output, it depends heavily on the accuracy of the resources that it references. If an AI system uses incorrect or misleading information, it can produce incorrect results. We know that not everything on the internet is true. So we have to take that same approach with AI. The sources that it is referencing may not be reliable. So we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence and that we are evaluating and taking a look at responses before utilizing them in any manner. And then we have the timeliness of the resources. So the timeliness of data used in AI systems is another important factor. AI models that are trained on outdated information may produce irrelevant or incorrect responses. AI systems, depending on which system it is, have different last knowledge dates. This means there's a different point in time of the most recent data that they can access. So this can affect the AI system's ability to provide up-to-date information and insights. So we need to make sure that we are double checking and evaluating everything that we are generating from generative AI before we decide to incorporate it into any of our work. Okay, and finally, looking forward. So I cannot fathom what AI is going to look like a year from now, but there are a few areas that I would like to further explore with AI. First, I want to create more opportunities to streamline some processes with AI. It's an incredible tool, and I would love to involve it in other areas as well. We've seen that I've used it in instruction, outreach, and marketing, but there are tons of other library services that would benefit from a streamlined process that AI can offer us. Secondly, I hope to incorporate AI into learning modules for real-time feedback. This is going to give students a chance to get immediate feedback as they work through their online modules. And this is just another way for us to ensure that our online students are receiving as interactive and engaging of instruction and guidance as our face-to-face students. AI can help us with that. And finally, I hope to move seamlessly to incorporate AI into instruction sessions, whether it's through an AI assisted activity or simply more detailed instruction about AI as a tool. So we can see all the ways that AI has been transformative, and how it has already changed how library services operate. And I can't wait to work with that further. Questions?
Jessica, one of the first questions that came in is if you will be making these slides available.
Yes.
Another one is, how do you make the decision to choose Gemini versus ChatGPT or other tools? Does it depend on your particular activity? Are you using the free version of one so that that's an advantage, etc.?
Yeah, it really depends on what my needs are at that time. For example, with ChatGPT, I can upload an entire document, where with Gemini, I don't have that same functionality. So it depends on what my specific needs are. What I showed you today were both the free versions of ChatGPT and Gemini. But really, I just kind of go out there and play around with different AI models, and see which fit my personal preferences the most.
Great. Another question is, when you've used AI to create content that your library is sharing out, do you attribute the content to AI in any way?
I usually do, yes. Just because we need to make sure that we're following all aspects of academic integrity, and that's a kind of gray area. So I do usually include a note saying that this was created with in at least in part through generated AI text.
A quick one. What platform or software did you use for your slides?
Oh, I use Canva.
And one of the main remaining questions is, you did some great demonstrations. Can you also do a demonstration of the trends summary prompt? And we are seeing some fans of Canva excitement in the chat.
Okay. Let's see. Usually I try trends in outreach. I work for an academic library, so I include that in my prompts so that I'm getting trends that are more consistent with the library type that I work for. And you can also add a year frame to this, although Gemini does, I believe, go all the way to 2023. So if we're using ChatGPT, their knowledge base stops in like 2019. And so I'm just generating a list of different trends in outreach with academic libraries in 2023. And so it gives me some ideas to start with. I'm a little surprised that VR isn't on here, because usually that's one of the ones that pops up immediately. But it gives me a little bit of information about like the digital, some digital trends, collaborations and partnerships, evolving needs. And of course, don't be afraid to regenerate your response, because sometimes I will regenerate multiple times until I get a draft that I really like. And the cool thing about Gemini is you can go to where it says show drafts, and look at the other drafts that it made, to see if one of those work better for you. So that's a nice aspect of Gemini.
That is cool. A question related to this is that in some of your prompts, you have asked the AI tools to reference your university's unique contexts.
Mhm.
And how do you get that information into the AI tool, or are you just relying on it to access the web pages for your institution and decide?
Yeah, I'm relying on it to access the web pages for the institution. I have in the past made kind of a quick fact sheet about my institution's library and uploaded that and told it to create trivia questions based on this information. So that's another way where I've gotten it to create some institution specific content.
Another question, and let me just say that if I'm missing any questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A form in Zoom. But another question is, have you received any pushback from others about using AI, especially in your instruction? And do you disclose use of AI with the faculty you work with?
I'm usually pretty transparent about my use of AI. I think that the use of AI depends on like the content and the context of the class. If the professor has a clause in has it listed in their syllabus that their students are not to use AI, I may go lighter on it just to make sure to adhere to what the specific instructor is asking for. But I'm usually pretty transparent, and I haven't gotten very much pushback from it from any faculty members. But I always frame it as a tool to be used. And I've worked with faculty to teach them how to use that tool. So I think that that's helped a lot.
And then one more question that I can answer, which is, a recording of this will be available, right? Yes, it will. It will be available through the Gale Conference YouTube channel later, and all conference registrants should receive something after the conference to that effect. Oh, we have maybe another question. Another question in the Q&A. I was just wondering if you have used any other tools to generate images that might help with marketing. I might have missed that part.
I have tried. I've found varying success in using AI for image generation. I think that for that, I've been using the free versions of generative AI. So it may be better with a paid version. But I haven't had as much success with generating images as I have with generating text and like brainstorming and supporting those aspects of the planning process.
And I can add to that. Chris Stacy Bates, I'm at Iowa State University, and all of our faculty and staff have access to the Adobe suite of products. And I actually used Adobe Firefly to design the bookshelf robot mascot for this conference as a whole. And I also have some colleagues that have been pretty successful with Copilot for images, but I'm not quite sure of their tricks for that.
Jotting those down for me to look at later.
All right, we are slightly over the official time, which I think is fair since we started just a bit late, but I do want to give everyone time for a break if you need it before our next sessions begin on the hour. So we're seeing one more round of appreciation for Jessica. And thank you all for attending.